Chapter 72-17. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched when she heard Zhou Su call himself a scumbag. She could only take the blame. It just so happens that Lei Jun is short of a woman recently. It's just right to give her to him. Zhou Su turned his eyes to Lei Jun, and his eyes were full of pride. That's great. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. It's good to treat her well. Lei Jun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang strangely. It's okay for others to say so, but is it really okay for you to say so? If you don't mind, I'll take her away. Lei Jun said. He had seen the woman, and she was really good-looking. I don't mind at all. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and then looked at Bewitching. My heart belongs to someone. Zhou Su and Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. They only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was worried about Xiao So. This time, her temperament really changed. Only Bewitching understood that this person belonged to him. Thinking about it, we haven't been to the market for a while. I have to buy some clothes. Lei Jun looked at his clothes. They rarely went to the market on weekdays. Since they were here, they simply bought what they needed to buy. Bailey Hongzhuang and Zhou Su had been walking beside the two of them. They quietly looked around and memorized the route. This place is really far. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the surrounding mines. They had walked a long way, but the surrounding scenery had not changed much. If it weren't so, we wouldn't go to the market so often. The location of the spirit-devouring mine has always been very remote. Zhou Su spread out his hands and shook his head helplessly. In fact, I used to think that the reason why Ji Chuan didn't want to go to the market with us was that he was too lazy to walk so far. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and only felt that it was indeed possible. Ji Chuan himself was definitely a person who was afraid of trouble. After walking for 2 hours, they finally saw the appearance of the market. From the moment they stepped into the bazaar, the sound of hawking filled their ears. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as she looked at the bustling street. It seemed that no matter where it was, the market would look the same. The market in the Crossing Immortal Domain was also very lively. Many cultivators were shuttling back and forth in the market. It looked very lively. It seems like not everyone in the Crossing Immortal Domain is mining. Xiao He sighed. Along the way, it started to feel that perhaps the entire Crossing Immortal Domain was a mine. Who are these people? Bailey Hongzhuang looked confused. According to her understanding, most of the cultivators who had ascended to the Crossing Immortal Domain had been captured to work in the mines. However, the people in front of her did not belong to such a situation. Some capable cultivators should be able to avoid that situation and live a good life in the Crossing Immortal Domain, Bewitching said with a faint smile. Indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. No matter what kind of situation it was, there would always be some smart people who could break out of it and become the best of the best. There was no real despair. It was just a matter of whether you could open a path out of it. I suddenly have an idea. What idea? If we can't change the current situation in the Crossing Immortal Domain, but we can become the best of the best here, then Father and the others will have no problem ascending, right? End of chapter. Chapter 72-18. That's a good idea. Bewitching's eyes lit up. He knew that his father and the others were getting closer and closer to ascension. If there were no accidents, it should be around this time. That was why they were eager to go to the Crossing Immortal Domain. Their ascension would be safe only if they solved the danger in the Crossing Immortal Domain. Although life in the upper realm was very comfortable, for cultivators, increasing their strength was their greatest pursuit. As long as they could avoid mining in the Crossing Immortal Domain, cultivating here would be much faster than cultivating in the upper realm. The laws of heaven and earth in the upper realm couldn't allow cultivators to break through to the beginner immortal realm. Only the higher realms could do that. We have to find someone we can trust here to get the information we need. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. They didn't plan to stay in the Crossing Immortal Domain for too long, so they had to do everything as soon as possible. We'll find him soon. Bewitching looked confident. Give them some time, and they would definitely figure out the situation here. We're finally here. Lei Jun looked at the market in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. I'll go buy something I want first. What about you? You go buy first. We'll look around here, Bewitching said. Okay, don't go too far. We'll be back soon. After Zhou Su and Lei Jun left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching also looked around. Do you think Xiao Sou is the kind of person who has a good status in the crossing immortal domain? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the ladies who walked past her. These people looked very confident, just like the people in the chaotic immortal domain. With Xiao Sou's ability, if she really ascended to the crossing immortal domain, I don't think it's possible with her strength alone. Bewitching looked thoughtful. The reason why she could establish herself here so quickly must be because of Shu Yu's help. According to Xiaofeng and the others, Shu Yu hasn't appeared for a long time. Could it be? The two of them looked at each other and had a guess in their hearts. If they were not wrong, perhaps Shu Yu was in the crossing celestial region now. Back then, he was able to escape from the crossing immortal region, which already proved his ability. Perhaps he has already found a way to survive here. If that's really the case, perhaps we can narrow down the scope. Indeed, we should come here more often when we have time. There aren't many people who have seen Xiao Sou. We can also try to find someone who knows Shu Yu. However, we don't know how big the immortal crossing is. I'm afraid that it won't be too small. They had seen how big the realm of chaos was. Although the crossing immortal realm was not as big as the chaotic immortal realm, it was able to accommodate so many cultivators who had ascended from different places. Don't worry, our progress is already very good. Bewitching smiled faintly. Moreover, we can still find helpers. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes lit up. You're saying to ask Xiaofeng and the others to come over? Haven't they always wanted to see what the crossing immortal realm looks like? As long as they can find a safe place here, they won't be caught to mine. It'll be very convenient to find people here. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. After a few days, we can ask them to come over. Otherwise, it'll be like looking for a needle in a haystack with just the two of us. End of chapter. Chapter 72:19. Hey, what did you two buy? Zhou Su and Lei Jun rushed over after buying things. The former put one hand directly on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. Bailey Hongzhuang's body stiffened, and she looked at the hand on her shoulder with a slightly complicated expression. This guy, after Zhou Su approached, he vaguely smelled a fragrance. Suddenly, he had some doubts in his heart. Why did he smell such a good smell on Gu Jian's body? Gu Jian, you didn't have a soft fragrance in your arms last night, did you? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned, and then she understood. Do I have to tell you this kind of thing? Bewitching pulled Zhou Su over with one hand. Let me see what you bought. I didn't buy anything. I just bought a few clothes with Lei Jun. I don't come out often, so I have to buy these things. You also know that the cultivation resources we have are not enough for our own use. We don't have spare money to buy these things. Look at Lei Jun's clothes. How shabby are they? It's shameful to wear them. Now that we have enough money, we should buy 2 outfits. They look more comfortable. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The clothes you are wearing are indeed a little old. How can we compare with you? Zhou Su squinted. Among them, Gu Jian was the most well-off. This guy was mercenary. Anyway, they would only suffer losses if they were with him. I'll take it as a compliment. The 4 of them wandered around the neighborhood again. Lei Jun also went to the weapon pavilion, intending to exchange for a more convenient weapon. However, the price also made him extremely distressed. However, he had been eyeing this weapon for a long time, and finally, he reluctantly bought it. The prices here are really expensive. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the things in the weapon pavilion, and her eyebrows were full of confusion. The prices here were much higher than the prices they usually dealt with. They were not at the same level at all. Even in the realm of chaotic immortal, this price was exorbitant. However, she also noticed that the people here didn't seem to find it strange at all. Therefore, she didn't dare to ask directly and could only sigh. Sure enough, after he finished speaking, Zhou Su immediately followed up with his own words. It can't be helped. The entrance to the crossing immortal domain was sealed. There aren't many resources in the crossing immortal domain. Everything here is much more expensive than outside. I do want to leave the crossing immortal realm, The price here is really unacceptable. I heard that the people in the chaotic immortal realm have a much better life than us. It is also easier for them to obtain cultivation resources. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. In a place where one could only rely on self-sufficiency, the price would indeed be higher. What's the point of just hearing about it? The more you think about it, the more unbalanced you feel. Zhou Su looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Gu Jian, I always thought that you were the most cunning. Now it seems that you are quite open-minded. The reason why we are not as cunning as Gu Jian may lie in this. Lei Jun also nodded. He felt that Gu Jian's ability to adapt to the environment was much better than theirs. Speaking of which, Gu Jian, since you are so cunning, you should use the right path more. Otherwise, you won't be suppressed by Yuan Gang all the time. What right path? Bailey Hongzhuang was confused. This chapter ends. Chapter 7220. You're so smart, and your flattery skills must be unparalleled. Zhou Su waved his hand. If you can coax the consul, then we won't have to be controlled by Yuan Gang all the time. Although Yuan Gang's strength is strong, we may not be unable to deal with him if we join forces. The biggest problem is that he coaxes the consul very happily. Every time there is a problem, the consul always helps him, so we don't want to offend him. Wasn't that what you were worried about in the past? Oh, you're talking about this. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to have known it long ago, but she couldn't help sighing in her heart. Sure enough, the reason why this guy is so arrogant is that he has a certain reliance. It's not so easy to please the consul. Yuan Gang and the consul have a fixed relationship for a long time. It's difficult for us to break them apart. Bewitching said slowly. You're right. Zhou Su sighed. This is the biggest problem. Although you taught Yuan Gang a lesson this time, it's hard to guarantee that this guy won't deal with you in other ways. It's not hard to guarantee, it's certain. Lei Jun looked certain. He has never suffered in our mine. With the consul's protection, he wants to bully us. This time, he lost face in front of so many people. He must be angry. I think we'd better be mentally prepared. When the consul comes, this guy will definitely find a way to complain about us. We haven't done anything wrong recently. He shouldn't be able to find a reason, right? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. That's not necessarily true. Lei Jun shook his head. I heard that the consul is very good to him. I even heard that Yuan Gang has more cultivation resources than us every time. Really? Zhou Su was also dumbfounded. So excessive? I also heard it from others, but I don't think this kind of thing is groundless. Indeed. Bewitching nodded. It seems that we have to be mentally prepared. I didn't think that Ji Chuan would leave us such a mess after we arrived. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head helplessly. Yesterday, when she saw Yuan Gang's appearance, she knew that trouble was inevitable. She had not seen this consul yet, but she had to pass this hurdle if she wanted to. Wow, it smells so good. Xiao Hei stretched her neck and sniffed the fragrance wafting in the air. Her eyes were filled with desire. Bailey Hongzhuang also smelled this very tempting fragrance, and noticed the envious looks of the two little fellows at the side. She understood that these two gluttons must have seen the delicious food and couldn't walk. Ritasi Brothel's drunken fragrant chicken is really fragrant. Even when I walk past the entrance, I can smell that incomparably alluring aroma. Zhou Su looked at Ritasi House's entrance with yearning. I've wanted to try this drunken fragrant chicken for a long time, but the price is too expensive. It's really not worth it just to satisfy my appetite. Lei Jun looked helplessly at Zhou Su. You've already talked about it so many times. If you really want to try it, then go. Although it's expensive, it's not like we can't afford it. Hearing the two's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was also helpless. Cultivators of the Radiant Sun realm were simply existences that could call the wind and summon the rain in the lower planes. In this crossing immortal domain, they couldn't even afford to eat. The contrast was really too big. Chapter 7221. If you want to go in, then go in. Why are you standing at the gate for so long? Bailey Hongzhuang stepped out and walked directly to Ritasi House. Hey Gu Jian. Zhou Su was dumbfounded. He was just thinking about it. How could this guy directly go in? After all, there were 4 of them. After a meal, his cultivation resources had shrunk by quite a bit. At this time, a sound of nature came out from inside. Don't worry, it's my treat. Hearing this, Zhou Su suddenly opened his eyes wide. There was a bright light flashing in them. Gu Jian, is what you said true? Nonsense. Haha. Zhou Su laughed and quickly followed. You're so happy to be scolded? Lei Jun was speechless. What's the point of scolding? The most important thing is that Gu Jian is willing to treat us to drunken chicken. Zhou Su's face was proud. He put his hand on Lei Jun's shoulder and dragged him in. I recently found that Gu Jian doesn't seem to be as annoying as we thought. This guy also has his merits. Aren't you being bought over a little too quickly? Don't you think so? Actually, I think so too. Lei Jun nodded seriously. Randomly choosing a place in the lobby, the 4 people sat down. 2 drunken chicken. Zhou Su waved his hand. Looking at Zhou Su's impatient appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. It seemed that this guy really wanted to eat drunken chicken for a long time. Where was his usual steady appearance? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the menu and found that the price on it was indeed much more expensive than outside. Especially this drunken chicken as a signature dish, the price was even higher. You choose. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the menu to Bewitching. The latter naturally picked up the menu and ordered a few dishes that Bailey Hongzhuang liked to eat. Jichuan, the dishes you ordered are like what women like to eat. There are even desserts? Zhou Su looked at Jichuan in surprise. He had never eaten with Jichuan and didn't know that his taste was like this. Is there a problem? Bewitching raised his eyebrows. No, I'm just curious. It's good that someone invites you to dinner. You still talk so much. Be careful that someone doesn't invite you later. You'll be finished. Lei Jun said with disgust. Alright, I'll shut up. Not long after, the waiter had already served all the dishes. Smelling the tempting fragrance, Zhou Su laughed. Then I won't be polite. You don't look like someone who would be polite. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Go ahead. Bewitching raised his chopsticks, picked up a piece of chicken, and placed it naturally into Bailey Hongzhuang's bowl. Seeing this, Zhou Su and Lei Jun's hands paused slightly. They didn't know why, but why did they feel that Jichuan treated Gu Jian extraordinarily well? Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed that something was wrong when the 2 of them looked at each other. She couldn't help but glance at Bewitching. He was used to taking care of her on weekdays, but he forgot that their identities were not the same now. However, Bewitching looked indifferent and looked at the 2 people opposite him. Is there a problem? No. Zhou Su and Lei Jun shook their heads like rattles and quickly turned their eyes to the wine and dishes in front of them. Shopkeeper, a drunken chicken. A man walked into Rutesi restaurant and looked at the shopkeeper with great familiarity. Take away again? Brother Yuan didn't have much time, so he took them all away. Chapter 72-22. Wait a moment, it will be ready soon. The shopkeeper walked to the side and instructed the waiter. The man stood in the middle of the room, his gaze casually looking at the hall. However, when he noticed the 4 familiar figures in the middle of the hall, his expression immediately changed. When he clearly saw the dishes the 4 had ordered, his gaze became even more strange. In the next instant, he did not bother to explain to the shopkeeper and turned to run out. Brother Yuan, Du Bing, why are you in such a hurry? Yuan Gang frowned and looked at the person in displeasure. Have you bought the drunken fragrant chicken? Then why did you run back? Yang Jiong asked doubtfully. I just saw Jichuan and the others at Rutesi restaurant. As soon as these words came out, Yuan Gang's expression suddenly changed. What did you say? It's true, I guarantee that I didn't see wrongly. Du Bing's expression was serious. Moreover, they ordered a lot of dishes and wine, looking very unrestrained. I noticed that there were 2 servings of drunken fragrant chicken. Brother Yuan, this isn't right. Yang Jiong could not help but say, Jichuan and the others don't have many cultivation resources. Normally, they are already lacking in cultivation resources. How could they have the ability to come here to eat and drink? There is indeed something wrong. Yuan Gang narrowed his eyes. Yuan Gang narrowed his eyes. He had been keeping an eye on Ji Chuan for a long time, but he had never heard of such a thing before. Moreover, he always felt that it was unreasonable for Ji Chuan's strength to suddenly become so strong. It had not been long since the last time they fought. It was impossible for this guy's strength to increase so much in such a short period of time. It was really strange. The most important thing was that he could still eat and drink like this. Could it be that this guy had found a way to obtain cultivation resources? Let's go take a look. Yuan Gang immediately walked towards Rutaisi restaurant. Du Bing and the others saw this and hurriedly followed. The taste of drunken fragrant chicken is indeed similar to what I imagined. It's really delicious. Zhou Su's face was full of happiness. Usually he stayed in the mine. That place was really too barren. Even the food here did not taste good. The taste of drunken fragrant chicken is naturally not bad, but with just the few of you, can you really afford it? An ear-piercing voice sounded from behind Zhou Su. Hearing this rough and familiar voice, Zhou Su hurriedly turned his head. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also raised their heads. After seeing Yuan Gang's group, they only felt that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. After the shopkeeper heard that Di Beichen's party may not be able to afford the meal, he quickly rushed over. The dishes ordered for this table were not few. Chapter 72-23. Since you don't intend to eat for free, please pay up first. The shopkeeper's face was cold. The people in front of him were indeed unfamiliar. He had never seen them before. Compared to them, Yuan Gang was undoubtedly much more familiar. Bailey Hongzhuang slammed a bag of blood spirit stones on the table. Her expression was as cold as ice. Look carefully, we are not poor people. Looking at the dazzling blood spirit stones on the table, the pupils of the surrounding people shrank. They could tell that these people were rich with one move. Not to mention a meal, they could even afford to eat. The shopkeeper obviously did not expect this situation, but he was quickly filled with surprise. He hurriedly said, "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly put away the blood spirit stones. Her gaze shifted from Yuan Gang to the shopkeeper. Originally, we did not intend to eat and dash. However, you rushed over and slandered us for no reason. We haven't even finished our meal. How are we going to settle this account? The shopkeeper also knew that he was in the wrong. He was too anxious after listening to Yuan Gang's words. His attitude was indeed unpleasant. "Sir, what do you want to do?" "What do I want to do?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Then, her expression turned cold again. "I hate it when people slander me. Since you said that we are eating and dashing, I can only confirm this matter." Zhou Su and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. After the initial panic, they actually felt very happy when facing her like this. That's right. That's what we should do. This thought surfaced in their minds. This was the right thing to do. The shopkeeper was instantly dumbfounded. He subconsciously looked at Yuan Gang. How did things turn out like this? If he had not listened to Yuan Gang's words, things would not have become so tense. When Yuan Gang saw Bailey Hongzhuang take out the blood spirit stones, his eyes narrowed. He did not expect Gu Jian to have so many blood spirit stones on him. Originally, according to his judgment, these fellows should have been penniless. This man is also interesting. He inexplicably rushed in and said that they have no money to pay. Isn't this nonsense? But the shopkeeper still believes him. If it were me, I would do the same. Otherwise, why would I be slandered for no reason? Brother Yuan, look at this. The shopkeeper looked at Yuan Gang awkwardly. For a moment, he did not know what to do. Gu Jian, the grudge between us is our own business. Why do you have to implicate others? I'm implicating others? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. We were just eating here, and you guys came looking for trouble without saying anything, right? I'm only doing this to fulfill your wish. Otherwise, if I really paid the money, wouldn't you be slandering me? Yuan Gang's face stiffened. With your usual situation, you can't afford to come to this place. Oh! Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. Chapter 72-24. Don't think you're so great just because you're strong. We all know how much our monthly salary is. Since you dared to come here, the problem is already very clear. Yuan Gang's face was livid. When the consul arrives, I'll report everything that happened today. Then you'll have to pray for yourself. Let's go. Yuan Gang turned around and left. He hadn't completely recovered from his injury. Once they fought, he would definitely be no match for them. If he wanted revenge, he would wait for the consul to come. Du Bing and the others didn't expect that the situation would end like this. But since Yuan Gang was ready to leave, they naturally wouldn't continue to stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped him. Yuan Gang turned his head. What do you want to do? Nothing. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was mild. You've ruined our mood to eat. We're not interested in staying here anymore. You'll pay for this meal. With her words, Yuan Gang's anger suddenly rose in his eyes. What did you say? Are you deaf? You dare to talk to me like this? Yuan Gang's cold voice was full of threat. Who do you think you are? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered disdainfully. I'll give you two choices. 1. Pay the money and leave. 2. Be beaten up by us and then leave. Which one do you choose? At the same time, Bewitching had already walked to Bailey Hongzhuang. A faint hostility broke out from his body. Like a flood, a terrible momentum shrouded Yuan Gang and the others. Du Bing and the others were all dumbfounded. They had always been unscrupulous with Yuan Gang. Who would have thought that now they would be threatened like this? The most important thing was that they didn't have many people here today. If they really fought, what Gu Jian said was indeed not a lie. Zhou Su and Lei Jun looked at each other. They had always thought that Gu Jian was a mouse. No matter what happened, he would hide behind and benefit from it. What had happened recently? How was Gu Jian a mouse now? He was a tiger. To be able to be so unyielding in the face of Yuan Gang, coupled with Ji Chuan's martial prowess, these two simply felt like big shots. Yuan Gang stared at the two of them for a long time. His face first turned red from anger, then turned green, and finally became as black as the bottom of a pot. In the end, he threw the blood spirit stone on the table. Ji Chuan, Gu Jian, I'll remember you. This matter isn't over yet. Just wait and see. Yuan Gang left these words behind and quickly left Rataisi brothel with the others. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh. Originally, they thought that Yuan Gang's group was here to cause trouble. Unexpectedly, Bewitching's group was the real deal. With just a few words, they drove the other party away. Moreover, they made the other party feel so aggrieved. Bewitching then sat down again. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also sat down. Seeing this, Zhou Su couldn't help but ask in surprise, "You're not leaving? It's rare for someone to treat us. Wouldn't it be a pity to waste so much food like this?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. They hadn't eaten many mouthfuls of this big table of dishes. Looking at the two people who continued to eat as if nothing had happened, Zhou Su scratched his hair. He only felt that what they said was quite reasonable. With your attitude just now, aren't you afraid of Yuan Gang's revenge? Lei Jun was a little guilty. When he thought of the consul, he had a headache. This chapter ends. Chapter 72-25. If we don't do this, he won't be so against us? Bailey Hongzhuang asked, Don't be silly. He has already hated us. Even if you compromise now, he won't let us go. Instead of that, it's better to confront him directly. At least it's more pleasant. Zhou Su thought about it and had to admit that Bailey Hongzhuang was telling the truth. You're right. Yuan Gang won't let us go. In another month, the consul will come to us. What are you going to do then? Lei Jun came over and lowered his voice to ask, Have you already thought about how to deal with it? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Don't lie to us. Now we are all grasshoppers on the same boat. If there is really a way, we don't have to be afraid. What I said is true. Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. No way? Zhou Su was dumbfounded. You didn't think of any way? Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Di Bei Chen's gentle voice sounded. Zhou Su and Lei Jun looked at the two people's unhurried appearance and were completely convinced. The situation had become so serious. How could these two guys still be so indifferent? If it doesn't work, just do as you said. Seeing that Zhou Su and Lei Jun were so anxious to eat, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but speak. What did I say? What did I say? Flatter the consul. Zhou Su saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was serious and didn't seem to be joking at all. He couldn't help but be dumbfounded. How could this guy say such a joke so seriously and calmly? Well, I won't joke with you. Bailey Hongzhuang put down her chopsticks. Do you know why Yuan Gang can be so close to the consul? If we know the reason, we can find a way to start from here. Bewitching said. Zhou Su turned to look at Lei Jun. Do you know? I heard someone mention it before, but it wasn't very clear at the time. However, I can go and ask around. Then I'll leave this mission to you. Let us know when you've found out more about it. Bewitching narrowed his eyes. If they wanted to gain a foothold in the mine, they had to deal with Yuan Gang first. If they could take the opportunity to build a good relationship with the consul, then their position would become very stable. Perhaps they could also take the opportunity to find a way for their family to gain a foothold here. If they couldn't do it, they could only take the opportunity to kill Yuan Gang, which was also a solution. Don't worry, I will do it as soon as possible. Lei Jun said seriously. After Yuan Gang's ruckus, the four of them no longer had the mood to continue playing in the market. After all, the number one thing they needed to deal with right now was Yuan Gang. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching also didn't find Xiao Sou's figure, but being able to get closer to Zhou Su was also a gain for them. At least these two people seemed to have believed them and began to treat them as their own people. After Yuan Gang went back, he was furious. Although he didn't fight today, he felt more shameful than a few days ago. Losing without a fight was tantamount to directly admitting that he was not Ji Chuan's opponent at all. When the consul arrives, I must kill this guy. Brother Yuan, don't be angry. Just let them be proud for a while. Then they will be finished. Du Bing comforted him. End of this chapter. Chapter 72-26. Yuan Gang's face was extremely gloomy. Even in the face of several familiar people, he still felt ashamed. There must be a reason why Ji Chuan and the others suddenly became so tough. Yuan Gang's voice was cold and full of resentment. I must find out the root of this matter. These guys may have secretly embezzled the spirit-devouring stone. Otherwise, they couldn't suddenly become so generous. He was almost sure that Ji Chuan's previous strength was not fake. So, there was only one reason why his strength could suddenly improve so much: he embezzled it. Only by embezzling the spirit-devouring stone and using it to exchange for other cultivation resources could he make such great progress. Otherwise, with Ji Chuan's level, relying on the resources distributed on weekdays would not make much progress at all. Embezzled. Du Bing and others looked at each other. Embezzling the spirit-devouring stone was no stranger to every steward. Every steward would secretly hide 2 pieces of spirit-devouring stone when they handed it in, because it was also of great use to them. Basically, it was something that was tacitly agreed. Brother Yuan, even if they embezzled it, I'm afraid they can't embezzle so much, right? Du Bing was a little doubtful. The number of spirit-devouring stone they had to hand in every month was already a lot, and in some months, they couldn't even gather enough. Generally speaking, it was basically impossible to get so many spirit-devouring stones at the level that they could gather. Jiong, have you found anything recently? Yang Jiong shook his head. Ji Chuan and the others basically stay in the mine on weekdays and rarely go to other places. I haven't observed their other actions. Keep an eye on them. They definitely have a way. Yuan Gang emphasized. Brother Yuan, don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. If there's the slightest movement, I'll inform you as soon as possible. Yuan Gang showed a satisfied expression. Let's try to find out about this matter before the consul arrives. After Bailey Hongzhuang and others returned to the mine, Lei Jun had already tried to find a way to understand the relationship between Yuan Gang and the consul at the first time. There was no impenetrable wall in this world. Even if Yuan Gang usually hit it well, as long as he put in a little effort, there would still be some channels to understand. I think we should go to the market more often. We have to start looking for Xiao Sou there. Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought. There was no hope for the mine, but in the current situation, they could not abandon this identity. All the cultivators in the crossing celestial domain were registered. Unless they had worked in the mine for a certain number of years or had made a special contribution, they could resign from their position and go to other places. Otherwise, without this identity, it was very likely that they would be captured and forced to mine. We have more freedom here. As long as we can fulfill our monthly quota, it won't be a problem for us to go to other places. Bewitching said slowly. They didn't get much information from Zhou Su and the others today, especially some common sense questions. It was precisely because it was a question of common sense that it was easy to be exposed when asked. Therefore, he could only ask about it in a roundabout way. He really didn't know much. Should we find a day to get Zhou Su drunk? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, and a plan suddenly sprouted. End of this chapter. Chapter 72-27. After spending time with Zhou Su for the past few days, she felt that Zhou Su was not guarded against them at all. Especially in the past few days, he had obviously treated them as his own people. If they took the opportunity to get him drunk and asked him some simple questions, he would definitely answer them without hesitation. If he thinks it's strange, you can play dumb. I'll say that you like to ask these meaningless questions when you're drunk, and he won't take it to heart. Bewitching looked at the woman who was talking excitedly as if she had figured everything out. He couldn't help but smile. Madam, why do you want me to play dumb? I'm not very good at it. Bailey Hongzhuang said matter-of-factly. Also, from what I can see, Jichuan was not very close to them before, so they don't know much about you. So, they won't know much about you when you're drunk, and the possibility of the plan succeeding is higher. What do you think? Madam, you've already figured everything out for me, so I can only follow your orders, Bewitching said with a faint smile. Will it really work? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with uncertainty. Madam, of course, your plan will work. Looking at Bewitching's smiling face, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but twitch her mouth. She didn't know if this guy was laughing at her on purpose. 2 days later, Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang went to the market again. In the end, they bought a map from a shop. Looking at the map, they had a rough understanding of the environment of the crossing celestial realm. According to their current location, they were only in the east of the crossing celestial realm. The crossing celestial realm was not small, and there were also cities, but the scale was undoubtedly much smaller than the chaotic celestial realm. It's a big task to find Xiao Sou in such a big area. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. They didn't have any clues at the moment. It was not easy to find such a person. In my opinion, why don't we let Xiaofeng and the others come over first? With their help, it'll be much faster. Bewitching nodded slightly. Let them come over first. If you're worried about being exposed, then grab a few identity cards first. With their abilities, it shouldn't be a problem. All right. That night, Di Xiaofeng and the others appeared in the crossing immortal domain. This is the crossing immortal domain? Di Xiaofeng scanned his surroundings. At first glance, he felt that it was no different from the chaotic immortal realm. That's right. The cultivators here are all at the Brilliant Sun realm and the Brilliant Sun realm. You guys shouldn't have to worry here. However, we can't guarantee that there won't be any initial Sun realm cultivators. Do you guys have any clues? Di Xiaofeng glanced at them and asked. Bewitching handed the map over. Look at it yourself. The crossing immortal domain is not small. Right now, we don't have any specific information about Xiao Sou's whereabouts. However, we can confirm that Xiao Sou has indeed appeared in the crossing immortal domain. This place is so big. If we want to find her, just the two of us won't be enough. We'll have to rely on your help. Hearing that, Xiren waved his hand. Don't worry. Leave this to us. It's best not to make too much of a fuss during the search. We don't want to attract unnecessary attention. Don't worry. We know what to do. But with his ability, I'm afraid it's only a matter of time. Everyone's hearts sank. This was not good news. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's find Xiao Sou first and solve this problem. After we go to the immortal domain, we still have a chance to fight against the Qing Devil if we encounter him. Di Xiaofeng said in a deep voice. You should pay more attention during this period. End of this chapter. Chapter 72-29. Boss, is what you're saying true? Gong Jun looked at Di Baichen excitedly. Recently, he had been staying in the mine and pretending to mine. It was really boring. He had been hoping that his boss would get him out sooner. He didn't expect that his boss would not only save him, but also let him do his old job. This was simply too blissful. You don't want to? Di Baichen raised his eyebrows. No. Gong Jun hurriedly waved his hand. Happiness came too suddenly. I can't believe it. They plan to open a restaurant. It's very convenient to get information. You'll be the shopkeeper. Doing business is secondary. Getting information is the most important thing. Do you understand? Boss, actually, I can do these two things very well together. Gong Jun chuckled. With my strength, once this restaurant is opened, it definitely won't be worse than that Rutaisi brothel you're talking about. In short, getting information about Xiao Sou is the most important thing. Bailey Hongzhuang emphasized. Gong Jun had always been most interested in business. It was impossible for him to not spend energy on this matter. Sister-in-law, how could I forget such an important thing? Gong Jun regained his serious expression. But who is this woman? Why did you run so far to find her? She's our opponent in the upper realm. Later, she ran away. We haven't been able to find her. She ran so far, and we're still looking for her? Gong Jun was speechless. This was simply a 10,000-mile chase. She took away the secret key passed down in the Baichen family, so we have to find her. Gong Jun's expression changed slightly. The secret key to unlock the seal? How do you know about unlocking the seal? Di Baichen suddenly asked. Gong Jun chuckled. I've heard them talk about it before, but I never took it to heart. How could there be such a thing as a seal? Di Baichen glanced at Gong Jun before withdrawing his gaze. I'm not too sure either, but the family inheritance seems to be very important to me. Boss, as the successor of the clan, we naturally have to find such an important thing. If the clan's inheritance is lost, how terrible would that be? Gong Jun lowered his gaze and his eyes gradually darkened. That's why you have to be more careful. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed faintly. Actually, Yen Che is also very good at gathering information. Just by relying on that face of his, he can gather information very quickly. In just a few days of preparation, Gong Jun, Di Xiaofeng, and the others had already opened the restaurant and named it Returning Imperial Restaurant. When she heard the name, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt very helpless. It was really easy to get it. Di Baichen's restaurant, so it was named Qin Giang Tower. How is it? My name isn't bad, right? Gong Jun looked at Di Baichen expectantly. I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's meaningful and pleasant to the ears. It's indeed not bad. Bailey Yen Che nodded slightly. It's concise and comprehensive. Di Baichen looked at the 3 golden words on the plaque and didn't comment. Have you guys chosen the chef? We found 2 chefs from the clan. I've tasted them, and the taste is very good. Di Xiaofeng said. Di Baichen handed a Cosmos bag to Gong Jun. There are some fruits in here that can be used as a specialty here. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw that familiar fruit. That was a top-grade treasure. Boss, once this treasure is out, the price will be set very high. Chapter 72-30. If it's high, then so be it. In any case, this place has always been expensive. So what if you ask for a sky-high price? Di Baichen's expression was calm. His gaze fell on the signboard of the Returning Qin Tower. Use this to make the Returning Qin Tower's signboard famous. As soon as this was said, Gong Jun immediately became interested. He wasn't afraid of asking for a high price, but he was afraid that his boss wouldn't agree. Now that even his boss had said such words, what else did he have to worry about? Boss, leave this matter to me. I guarantee that the Returning Qin Tower's reputation will soon be famous. We believe in your ability. Di Xiaofeng and the others also revealed smiles. From now on, the Returning Qin Tower would be their base in the Crossing Immortal Domain. If the Returning Qin Tower's reputation really becomes famous in the future, the family's disciples won't be helpless here. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with excitement. Thinking back to a few years ago, his vision was still limited to the entire upper realm. He almost didn't even think about this kind of thing. In just a few years, not only did his life change, but even the entire D family had hope. He began to believe that the D family could go from the upper realm to a higher realm. The entire family had unlimited future and possibilities. All of this was because of Bewitching. My number 13. Bewitching looked at the account book handed over by his subordinate. It clearly recorded the daily income of the devouring spirit stones. Yuan Gang's greed wasn't without reason. The mines or yield was indeed good. Correspondingly, he also ordered his subordinates not to make things too difficult for these mining cultivators. After experiencing the pain of mining, he also understood how difficult it was to survive in this mine. What's more, the number of cultivators who died in each mine was not small. The more they were exploited, the faster the cultivators would die. It would take a long time to obtain a certain amount of replenishment. As a result, the situation would only get worse. Ji Chuan, Gu Jian. Zhou Su walked over from not far away. Have you heard anything? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Zhou Su shook his head slightly. I'm not good at inquiring about information. It's more reliable to leave it to Lei Jun. I heard that he has already inquired about some things, but it will take some time to be completely sure. That's true. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This kind of thing must be investigated thoroughly. There can't be the slightest mistake. Yuan Gang would definitely keep this information confidential, and he might even release some fake information. Therefore, it was very important to distinguish this point. Don't worry, Lei Jun has always been very capable in this regard. There's no problem with him taking action. There is not much time left before the consul comes here. Lei Jun has to hurry up. Bewitching said. Chapter 7231. Everyone doesn't know? Isn't that too exaggerated? Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be in disbelief. She also wanted to know what other people's evaluation of Bewitching restaurant was. What I said is not the least bit exaggerated. Zhou Su's face was stern. You guys usually don't pay much attention to these things, but I've heard quite a bit from others. I heard that when Bewitching restaurant first opened, everyone was completely stunned by the signature fruit there. It was completely at a sky-high price. When everyone saw the price, the first thing they thought was that it was a completely unscrupulous shop. But when they looked at the other dishes, the price was not too outrageous, which made them feel strange. Because the price was simply sky-high, no one bought their signature fruit for a while. Until one day, a rich and overbearing guy appeared. He felt that selling the fruit at such a high price was completely cheating people, so he specially ordered a portion to smash Bewitching restaurant's signboard. Guess what happened in the end? He definitely felt that it was worth it, right? Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. How do you know? Zhou Su's face was astonished. If it wasn't for that, Bewitching restaurant would have long collapsed. How could it still be as well known as you said? Gu Jian, I didn't expect you to be so smart. Zhou Su smiled and patted Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. Just like you said, at that time, almost everyone was waiting to see Bewitching restaurant make a fool of themselves. Everyone thought that Bewitching restaurant came up with a sensationalist idea to please the crowd. If it wasn't for the sky-high price of the fruit, Bewitching restaurant wouldn't have attracted so many people's attention. However, after that guy ate their signature fruit, his expression suddenly changed. Everyone was already prepared to smash Bewitching restaurant's signboard. Unexpectedly, this guy suddenly shouted that it was simply too magical. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw his reaction. His friends also came up to ask. Later, this guy actually ordered another portion and kept asking the shopkeeper what magical fruit it was. Don't you think it's very interesting? Then what magical fruit is this? I don't know about this. Zhou Su shook his head. I heard that returning Imperial Towers people did not reveal the origin of this fruit, but I heard that this fruit has the effect of increasing cultivation and does not have any negative effects. With our current cultivation, who knows how many blood spirit stones we would need to consume to advance even a single step. But now, all we need to do is eat some fruits. This is even better than pills. As Zhou Su spoke, his face revealed a covetous expression. Thinking about it, I really envy those rich guys. If there's a chance, I also want to have a taste. Looking at your current situation, I'm afraid you won't be able to think of it. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. She now had some understanding of Zhou Su's wallet. This guy was basically a pauper. Don't cut off my hopes so quickly. Zhou Su was speechless. Maybe I can meet a kind-hearted person and invite me to try it? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bewitching and then at herself. You're not referring to the two of us, are you? Wasn't the drunken chicken paid for by Yuan Gang last time, so you're still thinking about the next meal? Actually, it's not completely impossible, right? Zhou Su said, full of anticipation. You're a big man, what's the meaning of looking at me like that? I'll consider it again when you become a woman. Chapter 72-32. Bailey Hongzhuang drove Zhou Su away with a face full of disgust, then sat down beside Bewitching with a smile. It seems that returning Qin building is doing very well now. There are rich people in every place. Gong Jun is best at grasping these things. Bewitching smiled faintly. He had already paid attention to Gong Jun's pricing. This price was much higher than everyone had expected. Obviously, Gong Jun himself did not intend to sell many fruits. Most importantly, when the price was raised to an unacceptable level, and there were people who would buy, this person would not only experience the benefits of the fruit, but also the envious gazes of tens of thousands of people. For many people, the latter was almost more tempting than the former. With Gong Jun here, we really don't have to worry about money. Bailey Hongzhuang drank a mouthful of tea. This guy was born to be a businessman. In the next few days, the entire spirit-devouring mine was peaceful. Brother Yuan, I've been watching Ji Chuan and the others recently, but there's nothing special about these two guys. They stay near the mine all day long and show no signs of leaving. I really can't find any problems. Yang Jiong had a difficult expression. Yuan Gang came every day to ask him if he was nervous. He only felt that the pressure was great. Impossible. Yuan Gang's expression was cold. They definitely have some tricks up their sleeves. You just didn't notice. I'm really watching them very closely. I see that they don't have much contact with the others except for Zhou Su. How are the other managers now? Yuan Gang asked in a heavy voice. Is there any change in the spirit-devouring stone offerings? Du Bing walked over and said, I found that these guys' attitudes have changed recently. They all said that they were in seclusion and did not offer any offerings. What's going on? Yang Jiong's expression changed slightly. In the past, these guys would offer offerings every month. It had never changed. Yuan Gang sneered. It's because they think that I'm not going to make it. Maybe Ji Chuan will have a chance to turn things around, so they chose to find an excuse to wait and see. These guys are too cunning. Yang Jiong secretly thought. Soon, they will know who is the boss here. Yuan Gang narrowed his eyes. Trying to play tricks in front of me? They will soon know how to write the word regret. Looking at Yuan Gang's sinister appearance, Du Bing and the other two's hearts couldn't help but thump. When the consul arrives, these guys will probably be in trouble. Unknowingly, there were only 3 days left before the consul arrived. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others gathered together and looked at Lei Jun. There are only 3 days left. Haven't you found out yet? The two of them had already decided that if the situation could be resolved by then, they would stay in the mine for the time being. After all, Lu Jin and the others still had to do business with the crossing immortal domain. It would be best if they could find a reliable person to continue this business before they left. If the situation was really bad to the point of no return, they could only choose to leave. I've already asked around. Lei Jun said slowly, but because it's too simple, even I can't believe it. What's the situation? Zhou Su couldn't wait to ask. Yuan Gang actually used gifts to please the consul. This guy stayed in the mine for the longest time, so he has a closer relationship with the consul. Chapter 72-33. In fact, we all belong to the stewards later. When we came here, we already knew that Yuan Gang and the consul had a close relationship, and subconsciously thought that there was some relationship between them. This was also the news that Yuan Gang deliberately released in order to confuse us. Over time, everyone felt that the relationship between them was unusual because there were other reliable connections. I've been inquiring about the news these days. At first, I guessed that the two might be relatives, but the more I learned, the more I was sure that they were just in such a relationship. Because I didn't dare to believe it, I spent more time to confirm it. Looking at Lei Jun's helpless expression, everyone's expression became very complicated. They had always thought that the relationship between the Consort and Yuan Gang was unbreakable. Now it seemed that this was nothing at all. So, everyone took it for granted, but subconsciously felt that this relationship was unbreakable, so no one tried to break it? Zhou Su's lips twitched slightly. Is that so? Lei Jun nodded slightly. That's right. Damn, I'm really convinced. Zhou Su was speechless. Thinking about it this way, aren't we too stupid? When I first found out, I also had this feeling. If it weren't for the fact that they and Yuan Gang had become sworn enemies this time, they might not have thought about it at all. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard all this, she also felt quite speechless, but this was good news for them. Since it was bribed with benefits, as long as they could give greater benefits, the Consort would be able to leave Yuan Gang. In this way, they would be able to get rid of this big problem. That's true, but it's not easy to please the Consort. Lei Jun continued. The reason why Yuan Gang had so much money to please the Consort was that he forced the other stewards to pay tribute to him. Through the spirit-devouring stone collected by these stewards, he was able to bribe the Consort. Although we have some cultivation resources in our hands now, compared with Yuan Gang, we are still lacking. Don't worry, we have our own plans. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. In terms of wealth, the stewards of the entire mine probably couldn't compare with them, but you, leave this matter to us, Bewitching said. Seeing the two of them so full of confidence, Zhou Su and the other person were somewhat surprised. Although their hearts were full of doubts, having such confidence was indeed a good thing. Then we'll be depending on you. If you need anything, just let us know. Although we don't have many cultivation resources on hand, we still have some. When Zhou Su said this, he had a pained expression on his face. He was really a bit poor. We are on the same boat. If there is anything we can help with, just say it. Lei Jun also said. Strictly speaking, they were already grasshoppers on the same boat since a long time ago. Chapter 72-35. While they were talking, the Consort's figure finally appeared in front of everyone. Seeing this familiar figure, everyone bowed. Greetings, Consort. It was the first time that Bailey Hongzhuang saw the Consort that everyone was talking about. The man was about 40 years old and had a plump figure. He wore a dark blue robe and looked very rich. Profiteer. These two words appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind almost as soon as she saw it. Gong Jun had instilled a lot of concepts into him. According to Gong Jun's description, he could tell that this guy was a cunning old fox from his appearance. Mercenary, this judgment was not wrong at all. Normally, she didn't like to deal with such people, but for now, it wasn't a bad thing. Consort, you're here. Yuan Gang greeted him with a smile. Yuan Gang. The Consort looked at Yuan Gang with satisfaction. How have you been? With the Consort's protection, of course it's not bad. Yuan Gang smiled. Everyone looked at Yuan Gang and the Consort's familiar appearance and couldn't help but silently mourn for Jichuan. These guys were really going to be unlucky. Consort, let's go to the tent and rest for a while. You can go through the accounts later, okay? The Consort nodded slightly. All right. Yuan Gang glanced at the crowd and said, the steward has traveled a long way to get here. He should rest for a while. Why don't you all go back first? I will send someone to inform you all to report to the steward later. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also dispersed. This was no stranger to everyone. It was basically the same in the past. Look at Yuan Gang. The Consort is on his side. He's giving orders on behalf of the Consort. Zhou Su's expression was extremely ugly. I can guarantee that he is definitely speaking ill of us to the Consort. When we go later, I'm afraid that we will inevitably be made difficult. This is terrible. After what Yuan Gang did, we didn't even have a chance to talk to the Consort. Later, everyone will gather together to report the results. We won't have a chance. The two of them were talking anxiously. When they turned their heads, they found that Bewitching and the other man were still calm, as if they didn't realize how bad the situation was. They immediately jumped up and down. The fire is already burning your eyebrows. Why aren't you too worried at all? What's the use of worrying now? We will find an opportunity to communicate with the consul, Bewitching said slowly. I don't think so. Yuan Gang definitely won't let us have this opportunity. Just because he won't give it to us doesn't mean that we won't look for it ourselves. Big brother, you're so calm. Have you already thought of a way? Let's act according to the situation later. Everything was as they expected. Yuan Gang had already reported the recent events of Bewitching to the consul, adding oil and vinegar. Chapter 72-36. Ji Chuan is so arrogant? Huang Tiangui raised his eyebrows. I don't have any impression of him. This kid is definitely a little unusual recently. Since a while ago, he has been acting very high profile, and his strength has suddenly increased by a lot. I think he might have taken the opportunity to embezzle the spirit-devouring stone. Yuan Gang's face was full of anger. His number 13 mine has always had a high yield. I think he must have done something to it. Otherwise, his strength wouldn't have improved so much. Huang Tiangui, who didn't take it to heart, couldn't help but change his expression after hearing this. You're saying that he kept the spirit-devouring stone for himself? That must be it. Yuan Gang said confidently, a few days ago, in order to investigate this matter, I proposed to exchange mine with him. This guy immediately refused. His attitude is very problematic. This fellow actually dares to stuff his own pockets. He's got guts. Huang Tiangui did not fully believe Yuan Gang's words, but this kind of thing was certainly not groundless. Yuan Gang's judgment should also have some basis. Isn't it? The way I see it, Ji Chuan simply wants to rebel. Yuan Gang added oil and vinegar. Then do you have any evidence of his embezzlement? Hearing this, Yuan Gang's expression turned a little ugly, and his voice sounded a little weak. Not yet. However, I have already sent people to investigate the evidence in this regard. I think there will be results soon. But if the consul can help me, it will be easier for me to solve this problem. Oh? How would you like me to help you? Yuan Gang immediately came over and said, since the ore yield of the number 13 mine is very high, why don't you give it to me? I can figure out the real situation. This way, if that's really the case, I'll be able to offer more to you in the future, won't I? In the end, Huang Tiangui was also a little moved. He knew that Yuan Gang was very popular in the mine because of his relationship with him. He also understood that this guy had taken a lot of advantages. He didn't care about that. What he cared about was that he had been living a very comfortable life during this period of time. No one would complain about having too many devouring spirit stones. With these things, his days would be better. If I suddenly intervene in this matter, will it be difficult to quell everyone's suspicions? Huang Tiangui asked hesitantly. Consul, your words are like an imperial edict to everyone. Who dares to be dissatisfied? Yuan Gang hurriedly said, I already told Ji Chuan about it, but this kid's bones are very hard. I didn't succeed. As long as you speak, he won't dare to refute. This brat is so strong? Even you can't beat him? Yuan Gang looked a little embarrassed. That kid has been acting a little strange recently, I understand. Huang Tiangui didn't ask any more questions. He now had a better impression of Ji Chuan. He was well aware of Yuan Gang's status here. Even in this situation, Ji Chuan was still able to make Yuan Gang feel helpless. It was clear that this kid's ability was not ordinary. Consul, does that mean you agree? Huang Tiangui faintly replied with a which immediately made Yuan Gang overjoyed. He had been holding this anger in for more than a month and had not found an outlet to vent it. Now, he finally found an opportunity. Consul, you can take a closer look at the account book when you check it later. Maybe that guy made a mistake in the account book. Yuan Gang stood in front of him and wanted to take the account books. However, Bewitching just glanced at him, bypassed him and handed the account books to the consul. Ji Chuan, what are you doing? Yuan Gang was worried that there was no chance to make trouble. Bewitching's move directly gave him a chance to be angry. I handed the account books to the consul for review. What's the problem? Di Baichen asked lightly. Seeing that Di Baichen's expression didn't change, Yuan Gang only felt a little less pleasure, but he could also guess that Di Baichen's mood at this moment must be very broken. Zhou Su and Lei Jun didn't have any problems when they reported, but they knew in their hearts that once Ji Chuan was unlucky, it would be their turn next. It wasn't until everyone had reviewed it that the crowd dispersed. Ji Chuan, pack your things well. Go to the number 64 mine to report today. Yuan Gang said with a smile. He walked forward and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Your death is not far away." Chapter 7240. Di Baichen's appointment in the account book was the next day. They all understood that Yuan Gang would rush to entertain Huang Tiangui today. Even if they wanted to find a chance to meet Huang Tiangui today, there would be no chance. Just as the two were about to rest, Zhou Su and Lei Jun rushed over. I received news that Yuan Gang is going to invite the consul to Rutesi House. Lei Jun went straight to the point. Aren't you looking for a chance to meet the consul? Tonight may be an opportunity. Looking at the anxious two, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but say, "We have already made an appointment with the consul to meet tomorrow." Made an appointment? Zhou Su was stunned. When did you make an appointment? When reviewing the account book. Di Baichen said. Zhou Su was dumbfounded. Wasn't I there at the time? Why didn't I know? If you know about it, doesn't that mean that everyone knows about it? Zhou Su. It seemed to make sense. So, you have already made an appointment. Our worries are superfluous? Lei Jun suddenly understood. He felt that it was impossible for the two to be unprepared. That's not necessarily true. Di Baichen's lips slightly hooked. Are you sure that Yuan Gang invited the consul to Rutesi House? Lei Jun nodded. I'm sure. Di Baichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and Bailey Hongzhuang almost immediately understood. Good idea. Zhou Su looked at Di Baichen with a blank face. Were these two guys too tacit? What happened just now? Why did Gu Jian directly say that it was a good idea? Did we discuss countermeasures just now? Zhou Su asked Lei Jun. Lei Jun shook his head. We didn't, but they may have. You can go back and wait for the news at ease. We will come back with good news. Bailey Hongzhuang pushed Zhou Su out of the tent. This guy was a little too restless, so their plan couldn't be known by him. Otherwise, it might cause problems. Are we leaving now? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Baichen with a smile. Of course. Di Baichen stood up, his eyes shining with thousands of stars. Night fell, and the stars were bright. A breeze blew by, revealing the coolness of the night. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen walked in the direction of the market. Their steps looked quite casual, but in fact, their speed was extremely fast. It wasn't until they noticed the familiar figures in front of them that they slowed down their pace. Consul, Rutesi Brothel recently added some new dishes and your favorite wine. I've already sent someone to book a private room. Yuan Gang had a fawning smile on his face. The Du Bing duo beside him also surrounded Huang Tiangge in an extremely friendly manner. Huang Tiangge lazily listened to the flattery of Yuan Gang and the others, looking very pleased with himself. This kind of thing, you can arrange it. Isn't this the consul? A surprised voice came from behind. After hearing this slightly familiar voice, Yuan Gang couldn't help but turn his head. When he saw the two people behind him, his face suddenly became gloomy. What are you doing here? We just want to go to Ru Xiang House to have a meal and happen to meet the consul. What a coincidence. Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Huang Tiangge smiled and didn't speak. He just quietly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Lei Jun. He wanted to know what kind of trick these two people were playing tonight. Ru Xiang House? Chapter 7241. After hearing that their destination was the same, Yuan Gang's expression turned ugly. He was almost certain that these two fellows were deliberately looking for trouble. However, Ji Chuan had already been demoted to the number 64 mine. It was impossible for him to make a comeback. You guys sure are well informed. Could it be that you've heard that we're going to Rutesi Brothel, so you came here on purpose? Yuan Gang said coldly. Steward Yuan, are you joking? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You must have invited the consul to dinner at the recently famous Bewitching restaurant. Why would you go to Rutasi restaurant? The consul has such a noble status, so it's only natural for him to go to Qin returning tower. The two of us don't dare to disturb him. Hearing this, Yuan Gang, Du Bing, and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. Although they had already guessed that these two fellows were here to cause trouble, they did not expect them to think of this. In fact, this was what they were most worried about. Qin returning tower's recent reputation was too resounding. If possible, they would also like to invite the consul to Qin returning tower. However, the exorbitant price of the fruit was simply not something they could afford. Once the consul was there, the fruit had to be ordered. Therefore, after much consideration, they decided to keep their mouths shut and hope that they could get away with it. However, it was exposed by Gu Jian right away. Qin returning restaurant? Huang Tiangui raised his eyebrows. A new restaurant? Bailey Hongzhuang stepped forward and said with a smile, "That's right. Right now, returning Imperial Restaurant is the most famous restaurant in our area. Moreover, their signature fruit is very famous. It is said that after consuming it, it can increase one's cultivation without any side effects." As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a look of shame. "We're embarrassingly poor and can't compare to Steward Yuan. That's why we can only hear about it from others and have never tried it ourselves." "Is that so?" Huang Tongge dragged out his tone and looked at Yuan Gang with a smile. "Damn you." Yuan Gang glared fiercely at Bailey Hongzhuang. He never thought that this guy would be so despicable. Didn't this mean that he had tasted the signature fruit of returning Qin restaurant, but now he didn't intend to go there again? The problem was that he had never gone to Qin returning restaurant to taste this fruit. "Consul, there is indeed a returning Qin restaurant in the city, but I have never tried it before." Yuan Gang quickly explained. "Did I hear wrongly?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with confusion. "I heard that Steward Yuan had already been there when Bewitching Tower had just opened." "Maybe you heard wrong." Bewitching winked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who immediately shut her mouth. Yes, that should be the case." Looking at the two of them echoing each other, Yuan Gang only wished that he could strangle them to death. Du Bing and the other two were dumbfounded. In the past, they had never realized that the two of them were so good at acting. Even they couldn't help but believe it, let alone the consul. "Consul, we will take our leave first." Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang bid farewell to Huang Tiangge and left. The rest of the problem would be left to Yuan Gang to worry about. It had nothing to do with them. Yuan Gang looked at the backs of the two leaving and couldn't help cursing in his heart. However, he could only bite the bullet and choose to head to returning Qin restaurant. Chapter 7242. Du Bing and Yang Jiong also looked embarrassed. Wasn't it a little too late for them to say this now? Huang Tiangge didn't say anything. He just looked at Yuan Gang with a slightly cold gaze. The latter felt a chill in his heart. He had already cursed Bewitching and Du Bing 1,000 times in his heart. However, given the current situation, all they could do now was try their best to make up for it. "How many blood spirit stones do you have on you?" Yuan Gang's expression was extremely ugly. With the money he had on hand, it wouldn't be a problem for him to have a meal at returning Qin restaurant. However, it was obviously not enough to order that sky-high price of fruits. Du Bing and Yang Jiong's faces fell when they heard this. This wasn't good news. However, they had no choice but to hand over all the money they had on them. Yuan Gang did the math and his expression was still ugly. Even if the three of them combined their wealth, it still wouldn't be enough. "I'm afraid Yuan Gang is in trouble now." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Although Huang Tiangui may have seen through our plan to drive a wedge between them, he's bound to be unhappy. In addition, Yuan Gang's purse is going to be in trouble." After understanding the situation in the account books, they already had a certain understanding of the income of each steward. Although Yuan Gang had kept a lot for himself, he should have given a lot to Huang Tiangui each time. In addition, this guy usually liked to enjoy himself. It was unlikely that he was very rich. There'll be a good show later. Bewitching's lips curved slightly. His handsome face was as enchanting as a demon's. He picked up some food and placed it in Bailey Hongzhuang's bowl. "Eat to fill your stomach first. We'll go to returning Qin restaurant later." Returning Chin restaurant. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. Are we going tonight? They had specially come to Rutaisi restaurant because of what they had said earlier. If they went to Returning Chen restaurant later, it would be tantamount to letting Huang Tiangre know that they were deliberately looking for trouble. Bewitching nodded. Today's good show has already played out to this point. Wouldn't it be a pity if we don't add something? What did you do behind my back? I was just greeting Gong Jun. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. When did you tell Gong Jun? I had already guessed that this would happen, so I mentioned it to Gong Jun a few days ago. I think he will act according to the situation. Smart. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly. Gong Jun had stayed in the mine before, so he was no stranger to Yuan Gang. Moreover, they should be very familiar with this kind of thing. So, your plan is to make them unable to pay? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. This way, not only will Yuan Gang be embarrassed, Huang Tiangge will also be very angry. As a consul, he was considered a respectable figure. If he lost face at this time, one could imagine the anger in his heart. Indeed. Di Beichen nodded. As long as we go in at the right time and resolve this awkwardness, Huang Tiangue's impression of us will be much better. Unknowingly, they would have the upper hand. So, there will be a good show to watch later. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Returning Chen restaurant. Yuan Gang looked at the dishes that Huang Tiangre ordered, and his heart kept bleeding. Huang Tiangre was obviously a little annoyed, so when he ordered, he did not consider Yuan Gang's situation. He only felt that after working together for so long, Yuan Gang had slacked off a lot. Chapter 7243. Perhaps Ji Chuan's appearance was an opportunity. For a long time, he had let Yuan Gang dominate the mine, and everyone was used to it. Over time, Yuan Gang also seemed to be fearless. Now, he even dared to fool him on such matters. If this continued, this fellow might not even be afraid of him in the future. Yang Jiong, you go back and get the money first. We will stall for time here. You must be fast. Yuan Gang said in a deep voice. If he couldn't even pay up here today, then he would really become a joke in the future. Most importantly, it was fine if he lost face, but if the consul lost face as well, he would really be done for. Brother Yuan, the price of this fruit is really too high. Who am I going to borrow money from when I go back? I'll borrow it from those I'm more familiar with. I'll return it to them after a while. Yang Jiong looked hesitant. He already knew that the price of this fruit was sky high, but when he saw it today, he was really scared silly. This price, who could afford it? Speaking of which, they were unlucky. The price of this fruit was already very high, and today, they happened to encounter some fruit of the highest quality, so the price was even higher. Now that the consul had already ordered, they could only bite the bullet and sit there. I'll go right away. Go as fast as you can. Don't waste any time. After finding a reason, Yang Jiong left the Returning Chen restaurant. In his heart, he had already categorized this restaurant as a shady restaurant. It was simply terrifying. When Gong Jun saw Yuan Gang scratching his head, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. You dare to offend my boss? See if I don't play you to death today. After ordering, Huang Tiangge was a little curious. What kind of fruit was worthy of such a price? If this fruit was not extraordinary, Imperial Returning Tower would have been finished long ago. Yuan Gang, what's wrong with you? Huang Tiangge said slowly when he noticed Yuan Gang's awkward expression. Yuan Gang immediately smiled. It's nothing. I just feel that it's rare for you to come here. I hope you won't be disappointed. I'll try the fruits in this shop. If it's really a rare treasure, I'll go back and tell the other consuls. I don't think it will disappoint you. I've heard from others that it is indeed not bad. Soon, the fruits were served. Looking at the fruits on the plate, Huang Tiangge and the others were stunned. That was because the fruit was sparkling and translucent. At a glance, one could tell that it was different from ordinary fruits. Just smelling the rich fragrance made people want to take a bite. At this moment, even if they didn't eat it, they already knew in their hearts that this was definitely something good. Did you see that? That table ordered special fruits. It said that the price of the fruit today is very high. I didn't expect that someone would order it. I'm afraid this table of people is not simple. Although the price is very high, everyone who has tried it said that the taste is very good. I don't think you will be disappointed. Noticing the envious gazes around him, Huang Tiangui's mood improved a lot. Consort, do you want to try it? Yuan Gang stared at the fruit. This was definitely a heavenly treasure. Even smelling it was a pleasure. Huang Tiangui picked up the fruit. In fact, he was a little reluctant to part with it. If possible, he really wanted to bring the fruit back first. However, in the current situation, he could only eat it directly. Chapter 7244. A rich aroma spread in his mouth, and pure origin energy spread to his limbs and bones. At that moment, he felt as if his entire body was light and could float. Huang Tiangui didn't say anything, just savoring this indescribable feeling. Soon, the entire fruit was eaten by him. He closed his eyes and exhaled a breath of turbid air. He felt refreshed. He was almost certain that after eating this fruit, some of the small problems that had gathered in his body had been cleared up. Such pure elemental energy was actually obtained from a fruit. It was simply unbelievable. Yuan Gang and Du Bing unconsciously licked their lips, their eyes filled with curiosity. Consort, how does it taste? It's indeed a well-deserved reputation, Huang Tiangui praised. Hearing this, Yuan Gang was also relieved. Everyone who had tasted this fruit said that it was worth it, but the price was too high. Fortunately, the Consort was very satisfied. Presumably, most of his previous unhappiness had dissipated. The other dishes began to be served, but Huang Tiangui's mind was completely focused on the fruit. He couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. He sized up this returning imperial restaurant. Although he didn't know what kind of person this boss was, to be able to get this kind of fruit, he definitely wasn't a simple person. Gong Jun had been using the corner of his eye to observe the movements here. After seeing Huang Tiangui's dispirited appearance, a faint smile appeared in his eyes. It's about time, dear customer, Gong Jun walked over with a smile. What do you think of our store's signature fruit? After noticing Gong Jun, Huang Tiangui also straightened his expression and said, You really live up to your reputation. You've broadened my horizons. To be honest, today's special grade fruit is also the first time our store is selling it. This fruit can increase the amount of elemental energy compared to other fruits. When you go back and circulate your cultivation method, you will discover even more benefits. I see. Since you are the first customer to order a special grade fruit, we can provide a special dish today. Are you interested in learning about it? Go ahead, Huang Tiangui said with interest. His mind was still filled with the original fruit. If he had enough money on hand, he could buy a few more. It would be safer than eating pills. Our store has researched a few new dishes that will fuse the essence of the fruit into the dishes. This way, the dishes will also be able to increase one's elemental energy. The taste is excellent, and the price is slightly cheaper than the fruit. What do you think, dear customer? Huang Tiangui's eyes lit up. He was already looking forward to it. Now that he had such an opportunity, he was even happier. All right, let's do that. Yuan Gang's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He felt that it was all over. Just the fruits alone were already too much for him to bear. Now, there were these dishes as well. He was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to walk out of this store today. Looking at Huang Tiangui's expectant look, he could only suppress all his depression. He wondered if he could find an opportunity to talk to the shopkeeper about the credit later. Gong Jun, you're really something. Ziren looked at Gong Jun in admiration. He felt that Yuan Gang was really unlucky. Chapter 7246. They had never tried such a unique taste before. After the initial amazement, the three of them began to gorge themselves uncontrollably. Because it was so delicious, they didn't have time to talk at all. They even felt that if they ate slower, the food would be finished by others. The cultivators at the other tables were actually very curious about whether the food was delicious or not, but after seeing the three of them pouncing on the food like wolves, they knew that the food would not disappoint them. They were even more curious and couldn't wait for tomorrow to come quickly. In the blink of an eye, the food on the table had been swept clean by the three of them. Yuan Gang looked at the unusually clean dishes and remembered that Yang Jiong hadn't come back yet. They didn't have enough money to pay the bill. Du Bing's heart also skipped a beat. He ate too happily just now and completely forgot about this. What should we do now? Du Bing couldn't help but look at Yuan Gang. If they left earlier, they would have to face the dilemma of not having enough money to pay the bill. Yuan Gang was also very conflicted, but after noticing Huang Tiangui's unsatisfied expression, he had already made a decision in his heart. Consort, do you want to eat more? Yang Jiong hasn't come back yet. Yuan Gang smiled. Huang Tiangui was already unsatisfied. Now that he heard Yuan Gang take the initiative to mention this, he immediately went with the flow and said, okay. After seeing this scene, Du Bing on the side couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for Yuan Gang. Their current situation was bad enough. Even if Yang Jiong borrowed money back, they might not be able to afford this meal. If they ordered other dishes now, the scene later, he simply didn't dare to imagine. This kid actually dares to order? Ziren frowned slightly. Could it be that Beichen's information is wrong and this kid is actually very rich? Impossible. Gong Jun was a little hesitant. According to his understanding of the store during this period of time, although the manager of the mine usually lived quite well, it was actually not enough for such expenses. On this point, he had also gotten a very certain answer from the boss. This situation was indeed a bit strange. However, when he noticed Yuan Gang looking out from time to time, he already understood in his heart. I'm afraid this kid is in a terrible fix right now and is looking for someone to save him. Gong Jun sneered. I'm not afraid of him ordering, I'm just afraid that he won't order. After a while, when that guy comes back, you can go and inform the boss. Ziren nodded. No problem. Du Bing watched in trepidation as Huang Tiangui ordered a few more dishes. He felt like his heart was bleeding, but even he had to admit that these dishes were really delicious. He didn't feel full at all. When the dishes were served again, Yuan Gang and Du Bing learned from their experience. They didn't dare to eat too much. They just slowly delayed the time. Huang Tiangui continued to eat by himself. He felt that he would have to come here more often in the future to eat such delicacies. Du Bing's face was full of desire. He was worried and satisfied at the same time. If he hadn't accompanied the consul here today, he didn't know when he would have the opportunity to taste this place. After a long wait, Yang Jiong finally returned. After seeing Yang Jiong return, Yuan Gang and Du Bing both breathed a sigh of relief. At least there was hope. How was it? Yuan Gang asked. Yang Jiong nodded slightly, indicating that there was no problem. Yuan Gang and Du Bing were relieved. End of chapter. Chapter 7247. Brother Yuan, I've already collected enough money for the special fruit. Yang Jiong smiled. The price of a single fruit was too shocking. He had kept it in mind ever since he saw the price. When he returned, he immediately found everyone and borrowed their blood spirit stones. Their biggest problem was the special fruit. As long as they collected the money, the other dishes would not be a problem. However, when he finished speaking, he suddenly noticed that Yuan Gang and Du Bing's gazes were somewhat unusual. He immediately asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Did you only borrow money for the fruit?" Yuan Gang's face darkened. Yang Jiong nodded subconsciously. Du Bing swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The dishes they ordered were not ordinary dishes. The total price of these dishes must be very frightening. What happened? Yang Jiong unconsciously felt guilty. Everything was fine before he left. There was no problem. Brother Yuan, what should we do now? Du Bing looked at Yuan Gang worriedly. She had lost all her appetite. If they could not pay here, they would really be done for. Yuan Gang secretly glanced at Huang Tong, who was in a good mood, and then quietly looked at the shopkeeper. After the interaction just now, he felt that the shopkeeper was not a difficult person to get along with. As long as he talked nicely, there might be a possibility of him buying on credit. Thinking of this, Yuan Gang said that he had to go to the toilet and took the opportunity to leave. He then found Gong Jun. As soon as he saw Yuan Gang, Gong Jun already knew what was going on. At the same time, when Ziren's figure disappeared from the returning Chin restaurant. "Shopkeeper, I wonder if I can discuss something with you?" Yuan Gang braced himself and asked. He had no other choice now. What is it? Gong Jun said with a smile. Aside from buying on credit, everything else is negotiable. He reached out and pointed at the signboard. Yuan Gang looked and found that the words, "No credit," were written on it. In an instant, his face became even uglier. The shopkeeper's words seemed to have directly blocked what he wanted to say. "Guest, what do you want to discuss?" Gong Jun pretended not to know, with a concerned look on his face. "Actually, I just want to talk to the shopkeeper about the credit," Yuan Gang said hesitantly. His voice was extremely soft, and his head was also very low. It was clear that this matter also made him feel extremely embarrassed. Thinking about how he was able to cover the sky with one hand in the mine, now he actually had to pay on credit in a restaurant. If word got out, he wouldn't be able to survive in the future. As soon as these words came out, Gong Jun's face showed a strong look of surprise. Before he had time to speak, the attendant on the side couldn't help but say in astonishment, "What? You want to buy on credit?" Perhaps because he was too surprised, the waiter unconsciously raised his voice and was immediately heard by many people. Originally, Yuan Gang's table was very eye-catching because not only did they order expensive fruits, but they also tried the new dishes first. Everyone was very envious. However, when everyone heard that these guys were prepared to pay on credit, they were dumbfounded. "Are you kidding? This group of people looks dignified, but they came here and directly ordered the most expensive fruits. In the end, they actually want to pay on credit. Isn't this a joke? This is really the first time I've met such people. If they don't have the money, then don't order. At this point, they actually want to pay on credit. Aren't they too shameless?" End of chapter. Chapter 7248. That's right. What's the point of pretending if you don't have money? Don't you know that Returning Star Restaurant never allows credit? All the envy turned into disdain at this moment. Everyone looked at Huang Tiange and company as if they were watching a joke. It was clear that after today, these people were going to become famous. Yang Jiong and Du Bing didn't expect such a situation to happen. They were dumbfounded. Didn't Brother Yuan say that he wanted to discuss it with the shopkeeper? Even if the discussion didn't work out, there was no need to be so high profile. They could have bought more time, or Brother Yuan could have left first and they could have stayed until closing time. At least the impact would have been smaller. However, now that it was brought up in front of everyone, they couldn't wait to find a hole in the ground to hide in. Huang Tiange didn't expect Yuan Gang to do things like this. He knew that this meal was expensive, but with Yuan Gang's position in the mine, as long as he used his brain, he would be able to solve all this. He didn't expect this guy to be so stupid that he couldn't even handle this kind of thing. Especially when the surrounding gazes made him feel as if there was a thorn in his back, his old face blushed. "Yuan Gang." Huang Tiangue's voice rang out. "What are you doing?" Yuan Gang's face was already pale. He glared fiercely at the waiter, and Gong Jun skillfully apologized. "Sir, I'm really sorry. I didn't teach him well." Yuan Gang didn't say anything. The anger in his heart was already rising, but the current situation wasn't the time for him to vent his anger. "Console, trash!" Huang Tiange angrily rebuked. Gong Jun hurriedly ran out with an apologetic expression. "I'm really sorry. Our restaurant never allows credit. This has been written down long ago." Just now, the waiter was too surprised to control himself. "I apologize to everyone. This kind of thing will never happen again. How about I give you a discount on this meal?" Gong Jun was extremely polite. Everyone understood that Gong Jun didn't deliberately let everyone know about this matter. It was just because the waiter was careless. As the shopkeeper, he handled it very well. For a moment, everyone was standing on the side of the Returning Star Tower. The Returning Star Tower had already done its utmost benevolence. This kind of freeloader should be spurned by others. "Manager, I don't want to dine and dash shy." Yuan Gang's expression was complicated. He wished that someone could knock him out with a stick so that he wouldn't have to face such an awkward situation. However, his attitude made everyone look down on him even more. If you don't want to dine and dash, then you want to pay on credit? It's not easy for them to open a shop. If all the customers they meet are like this, then how can Chin Returning Restaurant continue to operate? This kind of person is really shameless. One could imagine the anger in her heart. I hope so. Yang Jiong was also staring at Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang. The two of them were saying nice things now. Perhaps they didn't even realize how expensive this meal was. If these two guys also made a fool of themselves, then there was still room to turn things around. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang had already walked to the counter. Gong Jun proudly winked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Sister-in-law, I did a good job, right? Very good. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Yuan Gang and the other two were definitely going to suffer a loss today. Hee, I won't let them die. Gong Jun also understood Huang Tingue's identity. Once this guy was dealt with, boss and the others would have a much easier time in the mine.